Okay, we are back with Patrick. Patrick used to be a student at our program. We graduated a couple of years ago, and he's here now to share his working experience with us so that you can all get an idea of a possible career path that you can pursue after graduating from our master program. The floor is yours, Patrick.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon. If you just give me 1 second, I'm just getting the presentation set up. So indeed, as Gabriel said, I used to be a student in this master's program. I started in 2019 and graduated at the end of 2021. So it's already a little more than a year now, which is kind of crazy. The time has really flown. But yeah, I've been invited here today to give a short talk on what work it is that I do now and how I got here. And hopefully this might give you a sense of how one can head in the direction of medical research using statistics, because that's the area that I've gone into. And yeah, after this presentation, of course, I'd be happy to take any questions. So I work in cancer research, specifically at an organization called EBMT here in Leiden. And today, like I say, I'm going to talk about what my route into medical statistics has been. I'll talk a little bit also about my organization, the EBMT, so what it is and specifically what my role is within it. And then I'd like to give you a flavor of some of the statistical tools that I use on a daily basis, which are those from an area of statistics called survival analysis. So I'll provide a whistle-stop tour that is a very brief introduction of this area of statistics. So before starting the master's, my first degree was in mathematics and physics, and after finishing that, I did some work in Guatemala for a year and a half at an NGO over there. And that got me very interested in how one could apply, let's say, mathematical tools or a mathematical approach to the broad fields of human health. And the statistics program, which at the time was called Statistics for the Life and Behavioral Sciences, seemed to answer that quite well, because it was, something with, of course, with a mathematical component, but very much directed towards these more practical, let's say, areas. So in 2019, I started the program. And then at the start of 2020, I took a course in survival analysis. And just a couple of weeks into the course, the coronavirus pandemic broke out. And this made the subject seem particularly relevant because it brought let's say the relevance of the statistics of life and death very much to the fore. Right, every day we were hearing about kind of the hospitalization rates and the current death rate. So it made this area very quickly seem like a very pertinent field. So when it came time to choose an internship, I opted to do so at the LUMC in survival analysis. And I graduated, like I said, at the end of 2021, and at the start of last year, I started working at the EBMT. So the EBMT, what is it? Well, it stands for the European Society for Blood and Marrow Transplantation. And what we do is we study patients who have blood cancers and similar disorders and who have received a stem cell transplant as part of their treatment. And basically the idea is we want to optimize the process of providing these stem cell transplants for patients, such that their survival prospects and the prospects overall after transplants are made as good as they can be. Now, this organization, it started in 1974, not in an academic hospital, or in an area or a particular location for advanced research, but rather on a chalet on the slopes of Switzerland, when these four physicians, Dirk van Beckum, John van Rode, Bruno Speck, and Eliane Gluckman, were on holiday together, and they were all physicians who provided or who worked in stem cell transplantation, and they wanted to pool their resources, right, to share their knowledge and experiences such that these transplantations could be optimized. And yeah, so that was where the organization began. Now the type of transplantations that the patients whose data we study receive are called HSCTs, and that stands for hematopoietic stem cell transplantations. In a second, I'll explain exactly what a hematopoietic stem cell transplantation is, just to provide you with a little bit of context. But obviously it's quite a mouthful, so I'll often refer to those as HSCTs. And like I say, the ultimate aim of founding this organization was to save and improve the lives of patients with blood cancers and similar disorders. So what is a hematopoietic stem cell transplant? Well, hematopoietic literally just means blood making. Hema is the Greek for blood, right? A hematologist is somebody who studies blood disorders, and poietic means to make. So that's actually where we get the word poetry from. Now, these hematopoietic stem cells are, in a sense, immature cells. They're cells that are manufactured in one's bone marrow, and they're immature in the sense that their path in life has not been determined yet, right? They can go on to become white blood cells, which are responsible for fighting infections. They can go on to become red blood cells, which are responsible for transporting oxygen through the body. And they can go on to become platelets, which are involved in clotting and preventing one bleeding out, essentially. Now, if we take the case of leukemia, for instance, something goes wrong in the process of forming healthy hematopoietic stem cells. So a patient's bone marrow will typically get crowded out by faulty white blood cells, faulty leukemia cells, and that means that the bone marrow can't produce the required number of healthy hematopoietic stem cells that it needs to function. So that provides the rationale behind providing a patient with a stem cell transplantation. Right, so the patients firstly their immune system is destroyed, right? And kind of the idea there is to eradicate all the unhealthy cells. Then stem cells are provided, and in the diagram here, you know, those are coming from a donor, but those stem cells can actually also come from the patient's own blood. And if this process goes well, then the patient takes on board these stem cells, and they work to produce white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets as the patient needs to function well. So that's in brief what a stem cell transplantation is, and you might have guessed that I'm no biologist, so like I said, this is very much just a basic overview for context. But our organization aims to, well, it works, and it's got these what they call 3 pillars, right? So kind of 3 pillars of activity. Those are science, education, and advocacy. Me being a statistician, I work mostly in the area of science, and what that involves is using patients' data in order to produce studies. So the EBMT has data for patients, for approximately 700,000 patients all throughout Europe who have received an HSCT. And we work with over 500 centers, right, or hospitals. And it's really this registry that provides the backbone of the organization. One of the main events that we have each year is the annual Congress, and that's where approximately 6,000 physicians working in the area of stem cell research come together to talk about their own projects and their own, let's say, developments within their specific area of stem cell research. And so that kind of forms the educational pillar. And regarding advocacy, we work with hospitals in order to ensure that the highest level of care is provided throughout the transplantation process and thereafter. So I'd like to give you a very quick sense of what one of these studies actually involves. And studies can take many forms. They can be of many sizes. Some have as few as 10 or 20 patients, whereas others can have, perhaps close to 1,000. So they really do vary in size and objective, but generally speaking, within a study, we seek to compare groups of patients. So these could be patients who have had a different type of stem cell transplantation, right? Or who've had kind of a different treatment altogether. So we might compare patients who've had a stem cell transplantation to patients who've received a more novel form of treatment, for instance, gene therapy. We might compare old patients to young patients to see how their survival prognostic compares after transplantation. And we might compare patients according to infection status. So if a patient has X number of infections at the time of transplantation, how much does this hinder their survival prognostic post-transplantation? And we're interested in comparing groups according to a number of different things. Perhaps the most obvious and the most common is overall survival, right? So we want to know, after a patient has received a transplantation, what does their survival prognostic look like? We might want to measure how successful the transplant has been, because there are particular indicators that we can use to see, okay, hey, the patient has taken these stem cells on board and they're functioning according to expectation, or as we would hope they would function, so we can measure that. And there are also other secondary complications that can arise as a result of these transplantations. So one common such complication that we study is called graft versus host disease. And this is the situation where the transplanted cells recognize or consider the host cells as foreign and start to attack them. And this can be a very serious complication. So of course, it's not just enough that a patient survives, but we also want to make sure that the transplant has worked and that the patient is as healthy as they can be post-transplantation. So there are a number of endpoints that we study, but like I say, a very general feature of these studies that we do is to compare patients according to various factors, looking at a number of these outcomes. So to give you a sense of what the statistics actually looks like, I'll provide a very brief introduction to this field of survival analysis. And that's an area of statistics that arises from the following observation. And that's that everybody dies, just not at the same time. So typically in survival analysis, you want to know, okay, we've got a group of patients and they're treated and then we follow them. And okay, what is the survival rate at each point in time following treatment? So of course, we can create a very simple model. We know that each patient starts alive, right? They're alive at the time of treatment. And then at some time point later, they will die. Now, they might either die kind of when they're still under follow-up. So it could be that, we do have a date of death for certain patients, or it could be that the study ends and they're still alive, which would be great. Or, they might kind of move away during follow-up and so kind of for that reason, we don't know at what time point they die. So such patients are said to be censored. And this, of course, introduces a degree of uncertainty in our estimations of the survival rate at each point in time. So representing the survival rate graphically, we might get something like this. And we can see here that the black line is our estimate of the survival rate at each point in time. And the gray confidence bands reflect the uncertainty introduced by censoring, as well as the inherent uncertainty that you've got whenever you're dealing with a finite sample of patients, essentially. Of course, you can compare two groups according to survival rates, and this would what it would look like graphically. This is just toy data, by the way. I've not actually taken this from any study, but it is a very typical kind of graph that you make and features in the studies that we produce. We've got two groups of patients here defined according to treatment, and we compare their survival rates. And in this toy example, of course, there's no evidence for a difference in treatment. But of course, survival analysis extends to more than just survival. I mentioned earlier that there's this complication. 1 second, I've just seen that somebody was in the lobby and have admitted them. So I mentioned earlier that there's this complication, graft versus host disease, which can be potentially very serious. Of course, we can study that too, as well as things like relapse. Right, so this is kind of where the patient, after treatment, the patient's disease seems to go away, but then unfortunately comes back again. So this is also a somewhat common occurrence and can also be studied through the lens of survival analysis, as well as more positive outcomes such as immune recovery. Survival analysis extends to other areas of medicine too. Right, you might be interested in studying the time to onset of a particular disease, such as Alzheimer's or dementia, or you might be studying couples who are struggling to conceive, and then the event of interest would be their first pregnancy, which is of course a much more positive outcome. And in fact, survival analysis has flown the perch that was originally provided to it by medicine, and is now used in many other areas of study more broadly. So banks might be interested in determining when patients are likely to default on loans. Criminologists might be interested in studying if and when prisoners or ex-prisoners reoffend upon leaving prison. And you could even study the time that it takes a country to win their first World Cup, using survival analysis, which is something that I personally would be very interested in, because I'm from Scotland originally, and I really do wonder when on earth we're going to win our first World Cup. And just to prove this point, I gave this or a similar presentation to this a couple of months ago for the course, and when I was looking for materials that I could use, I came across this article entitled "Death is Certain, the Time is Not: Mortality and Survival in Game of Thrones." And these authors essentially performed a survival analysis on the characters in Game of Thrones and how long in terms of viewing time it takes them to die. And to be fair, they got it published in a legitimate journal. So I think what I'd like to say is that if you are looking for a career that allows you to watch Netflix or HBO or wherever it is that you might watch Game of Thrones, then medical statistics may well be the area for you. All I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Does anyone have any questions for Patrick so far? This would be the time to ask. Or if you can turn on your microphone. Yes, Annette has a question. They raised their hand.
Yeah, hi. Oh, wow, it's really annoying to type actually, but thank you so much for sharing your experience. I was wondering, how was your experience like when you were transferring from your master's to a work environment? What did you find easy? What did you find challenging?
I thought the transition was fairly smooth, actually, because so many of the skills that are taught and we learn in the masters I have to use in my everyday work. So, for instance, I use R which was something that was used quite extensively throughout the master's program. Also, I use survival analysis on a daily basis, which, you know, what is a topic that was kind of taught in the master's. So there were many ways in which the transition was fairly smooth. I'd say though that there were definitely a number of challenges, and one of them was just that kind of all of a sudden I found myself working with data sets that were much bigger than those that had been kind of used in the course, perhaps with less explanation and less guidance. I found when I started this work that yeah, in a sense, I was sort of kind of thrown into the deep end because I was given these big data sets and these big scripts, and there was kind of like perhaps a much less gentle introduction than you might get typically in a course in the masters. But having said that, I did find that the skills that I was taught within the masters came in very handy.
Thank you. Can I also ask about just generally internship opportunities and what other fields or big industries offer either internship or job opportunities for people in this master, either in Netherlands or somewhere else in Europe?
I think that kind of like my I might be fairly limited in my scope to answer this question because, you know, just because most of the people who I come into contact with who have also studied statistics happen to kind of be in my area of medical statistics. But within medical statistics, I mean, you know, you can go into. I know that quite a lot of people from our program go to work for a pharmaceutical organization, so I know that that's very popular. You can, of course, go the more academic route. Quite a lot of people end up at the LUMC. Where I work is a non-profit, and you know, of course, there'll be kind of many non-profits that are perhaps similar out there. So I mean, I once read a quotation about statistics, and that's that what's great about statistics is that you get to play in everybody else's backyard, right? So it doesn't kind of matter all that much what is being studied, because the statistical tools are so transferable kind of from one area to another. So like I say, most people who I know who have done their masters have also gone into the medical statistics area, but that's just because that's an area that I'm in. But I think there are so many options. I heard about one person, for instance, who did their internship at Ajax Football Club, kind of studying football data. So I really do think there's an enormous spectrum out there.
Okay,
all right, thank you very much.
Right. If anybody has any questions for Patrick, please ask them now. Otherwise, if you have additional questions about the program itself or opportunities after the program, then our study advisor, Garnet, will be able to answer the questions after Patrick is done. So if anyone has any other questions for Patrick, you can also ask them in the chat. We will answer them now. Okay, if not, then thank you so much for your presentation, Patrick. Following now, we have kind of a Q&A time for our study advisor, Garnet. So if you have any questions concerning the master or internships for the master or the thesis, anything at all, then now is the time to ask.
Well, could I just say thank you very much for having me along. And yeah, I just wanted to wish you guys all a fantastic time throughout your masters. It's I found it to be challenging, but also one kind of really where I learned a lot. So I just wanted to wish you guys all the best out there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good day. We also prepared some frequently asked questions so that if nobody has any specific question, there are some topics that we would like to prospective students to know. So we can ask this question to Garnet, and he can help us with these. Do you want to start, Kimberly?
Yes, thank you. So firstly, we often have this question if it's possible to start the program in both September and February.
Yes, indeed. So it's yes. We always have some students starting in September and some starting in February. We do have a strong preference that people start in September. If you do start in February, then because you are more or less starting after the first semester, so you're kind of dropped into the second semester, we do require, or we do ask that you have a stronger mathematical background, so that you've already seen, for example, a lot of the probability and statistics, that you have some experience ideally with R programming, that you've seen some linear models before. Yes, if you do have that background, then it doesn't make a huge difference when you start. But if you're unsure, or if you feel that there might be some things that you want to review first, then September is strongly recommended.
Yes, okay, thank you. And for students who do have a mathematics background, so students who are coming from a mathematics bachelor, for example, then a lot of the courses that they get in the first semester are more basic courses that they've gotten already. Is it possible to get exemptions from these courses and maybe take other electives?
Yes, absolutely. So we strongly encourage that if you have taken a course before, so if you've taken a calculus course before, if you have a strong background in that, then yeah, then you shouldn't have to take it again. So it's very possible to apply for exemptions. I always help all the new students with getting exemptions for courses if desired. And then yes, we can always discuss some other electives that are offered at the same time. So that you won't be just, or I mean, you can obviously choose to just sit around and then just to take or just have a reduced course load. That's also completely fine. You don't have to replace an exempt course with something else. But if you want to, then I'm there to help you choose other courses.
Okay, thank you. And additionally, is there anything that students who do not have a strong mathematics background can do to prepare for the masters?
Yes, so this is something that we are actually working on this year. So I'm making a sort of self-study course that's designed for people that are concerned about their mathematical background, just to make sure that you have all the prerequisite knowledge beforehand, right? So it's not going to cover everything taught in the mathematics courses, of course. That would be a bit yes, superfluous, I guess, once you start. But it'll make sure that you get up to speed. It's not finished yet, so if you are interested in additional resources, I do have a list that I can recommend to people. So please just email me at pr@stat.leidenuniv.nl, and we can get in contact about that.
All right. Um, Additionally, which are there specific fields that are being focused on in this program? So if the theory, so are there specific fields that the theories are being applied to in this program?
Yeah, that's a good question. So certainly, as I think has been mentioned, the knowledge that you gain in this program is broadly applicable to almost every field now, right? So, oh yes, sorry. I see someone asking if I could repeat the email. So it's pr@stat.leidenuniv.nl. Oh yes, okay. Um, yes, I see that we're all adding it now. Yes, so right, many of our students, for example, come from an economics background, many from a psychology background, and so on and so forth. So what you see in the internships and thesis opportunities that students that the students pursue is that these are quite diverse. So if you wanted to go and work in a financial company, then we have many students who have successfully done so. However, within the program itself, it's a collaboration between the Mathematical Institute, the Psychology Department, Leiden University, as well as, I'm missing one, oh, the LUMC, so our medical center here in Leiden. And so many of our researchers, the majority of our researchers do have a life and behavioral sciences background. So if you do want to work per se with one of our researchers, then yeah, you'll probably be working in that kind of area. And of course, because that's their specialty, many of the examples given in the courses come from those areas as well.
Okay, and to add on to actually the fields that you're talking about, what would you say are the most popular fields for students to enter after finishing this master program?
Oh, afterwards. Yes, so that's also a very good question that I'm sure many here are quite curious about. I think Patrick gave a quite good overview of yeah. So a lot of people tend to go into medicine as well as into the pharmaceutical sciences. There's a strong demand there for more yeah, data scientists. We also have many people going to work in tech areas. Um, and this is quite broad already. Just saying tech doesn't perhaps mean so much, but as you can imagine, that there's a kind of ongoing tech boom. I guess perhaps a bit reduced in recent months, but yeah, I think it's still quite strong, especially here in the Netherlands. So yes, we have many people that choose to go on and use machine learning and especially AI in the various companies. Uh, Many people also, as I mentioned, go into finance. So a lot of financial companies are interested in people that can work with large data sets, people that understand how algorithms work and so on. And so there's also a strong demand there. And of course, we have people that choose to go on to do more pure research, right? So there's always a few students in our program that choose to go on and really get a PhD afterwards.
I also want to quickly mention once again that if you have any additional questions of your own, please feel free to raise your hand or ask them in the chat. Otherwise, I also have some other frequently asked questions. So what, oh yes, we have a raised hand by Owen.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the exact situation you described before, where I do a bachelor's in maths. So I have done quite a few courses, like the generalized linear models that you said about before. And you mentioned you can do other electives. Could you give some examples of what they may be?
Yes. Yeah, so that's a great question. So in terms of other electives, we do have a kind of list of pre-approved electives that you can always take. So I'll put a link here to our prospectus of all the courses. And this automatically sends you to the year one courses, but if you click on the year two tab, then what you'll see, and it's a bit hard to read at first, but in the first semester, so the fall semester where you would start, then you're fully able to take any of the electives listed there. With the understanding that yes, some of them might have prerequisites, especially in regards to programming knowledge. So all the courses listed here under the pre-approved electives you can always take without any issue. You can always take courses outside of these ones as well through a petition process. So others from mathematics, they've chosen to take mathematics electives here. So in the Master Math program, and that's, for example, more, for example, measure theory is quite popular if you come from a strong mathematics background and you're more interested in, I guess, the theory behind statistics and probability more. That was taken recently by 2 students that entered in fall this year. Yeah, so it depends a lot on your interests as well. You can also take courses that aren't related to statistics or probability and have them count as extracurricular. So if you think I really want to take a course on something completely different, that's also possible.
Cool, thanks.
Julia asked, I don't know if you can, but Julia asked, is it easy to get a fully remote online job after the master's?
Oh, yikes, that's I have kept in touch with a few alumni, but I have to admit I don't have that information. Yeah, I guess that's more a comment on the current job market. I really couldn't say much about that and how it is in the Netherlands as a whole. Yes, but if you send me an email, then I can get into contact with a few with a few alumni and check yeah, how that looks.
And Aneta asks, are there any research groups working in neuroscience, generally in the cognitive sciences? Is it possible to do an internships or master dissertation with them?
Yes, yes. So this is something that many people in our program are very interested in, and so there's absolutely possibilities to do research in neuroscience. Um, there is the yeah. I mean, I know the LUMC has a group specializing in that, and I think FAN, so psychology, also has one that's a bit more focused on that. But yes, for one reason or another, we do attract many students, and we have many researchers in our program that are in that area. So uh, yeah, if you send me an email as well, I can actually send you some of the recent theses that students have written in that area, so you can see what people are doing.
And Mega asks, are there any career fairs to help students build connections and get a general exposure to the industry?
Yes. So Leiden has a yearly, it's called the Beta Bannermarkt, which it translates to the, I guess, kind of STEM job market. It's open to all students. And what happens is that it's a career fair with a lot of local companies, but also companies from the entirety of the Netherlands. It's not specific to statistics and data science. They're also looking for people from other areas as well. Um, but this is something that all students can freely attend. And it's actually where I initially found one of my jobs after I finished my own studies here. I came back here, as you can see, but yeah, so it's a very good opportunity. There's also a student organization, or it's not just students, I think the young statisticians. And I know that they frequently have many meetings with people from industry and many different workshops and presentations that you're always exposed to different possibilities. I also keep track of the different internship possibilities. So sometimes companies contact us because they're really looking for people in this area. And I try to always put these online so students are aware of the possibilities.
Thank you. If there are any additional questions, if not, then actually one of the frequently asked questions is if students are supported when searching for an internship, or will that have to, or will they have to do this on their own?
Yeah, so especially for internships. So internships is a bit of an interesting thing in that our program used to have a mandatory internship part, but it's since been replaced by a thesis component, which can be a part of an internship. So in this sense, we do have a formal part of our program, namely the thesis, where you are able to do it via an internship and then write a more applied thesis. In terms of support that we have for that, yes, so as I mentioned, we do have many of our researchers do have links with industry, and so you're always encouraged to speak with them directly. I also have a small database, at least, of where previous people have worked, as I mentioned. So I try to keep this updated with current opportunities. Yeah, so in terms of support, there's not kind of an official program, but I mean, I'm always willing to work with students directly to help them find an internship that passes that fits with their interests.
All right, thank you. So these are the last couple of minutes of this meeting. If you guys have any last additional questions for Garnet or anybody in general, then please let us know. So Aneta asks, what is the balance like between in-person and independent study within this master?
Yes, so almost all of our courses don't have, so sorry, let me rephrase this. I think that there are two courses that have an attendance policy. And these are because you work directly in a group. So one of them, I think, is given in the first semester, where you very much have to make a presentation. And yes, all the other lectures are or have been recorded. So you are able to stay mostly online. The other course that requires attendance is called statistical consulting, and that's because you're very much given a client in a group sometimes that you work with, and so yeah, you need to be present with your client, obviously. Beyond that, you are able to stay online for most of the courses, to whatever extent you want. So I know that there are kind of some students that we almost never see because they prefer to go in person to their classes. I guess, yes, my personal encouragement for everyone is to attend their classes at least at first, especially the tutorials. But yeah, you are able to stay mostly online if you so choose to. Examinations also have a mandatory attendance policy, so that there's no online examinations anymore.
Right. Thank you. We're just waiting maybe another minute or two to see if there are any additional questions. And if there are not, then I think we can wrap up. Yes. Oh, and some final remarks. We have a couple of announcements. Gabriele, do you wanna?
Yeah. Thank you. So for everybody that is living in the Netherlands or that would like to come to Leiden to check out our university, we have another experience day on Friday, March 17th. It's going to be different from this one because we will be offering a different lecture on our course, multivariate and multidimensional analysis. So even if you already participated in this, if you're still interested to participate on the on-campus experience day, it's going to be a different thing, so you can join both. If you want more information, you can find them on our own website. In case you cannot make it on that specific day, but you would still like to visit the university and get an actual taste of what it's like to come to our university, you can email us at the email that we sent above, and you can take part in the Student for a Day experience, where basically you will be paired with either Kimberly and I, and we can go to one of the first year lectures together, and you can visit the campus and go to one of the live lectures. Furthermore, if you have any other questions, we are available on the PR email that we sent above, or if you go to our website, there is the option to chat with either Kimberly or me via Unibuddy. This is a platform where you're paired to students that study in the program that you would like to study in the future, and so you can ask them any type of questions. We're there to literally answer any type of question regarding the university, our faculty, our program, the courses, or even what it's like to move as an international to Leiden, to the Netherlands, what it's like to find a house in the Netherlands, what are the good tips to find a house, or anything, or even things like social life in Leiden. I think these are all the. Oh, there's another question, I think. Oh no. Oh yeah, there is. Sorry.
I think it's been answered by Garnet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was on the first message only. I think this concludes today's meeting. We would like to thank all the speakers that have came today, and we would like to thank all the guests that have joined us today for the session. We really hope you liked it. If there are no more questions, we can still wait here for a couple of minutes. And otherwise, in a couple of minutes, we're going to close the session if there are no more questions. Thank you once again for joining.